Well, I'll be honest with everybody. I have literally no idea if the intro ended 10 seconds ago, if I'm talking over it right now, because my playback of that intro was very choppy and weird. You might not have noticed it. I'm sitting here wondering, did it cut out? I don't know. But you know what? It doesn't matter how consistent we are in doing these live streams. Mistakes are made. Mistakes are always made. We're constantly making mistakes, and that doesn't stop us. Today, we are talking about consistency on YouTube, how and why you should be as consistent as possible on your channel. First and foremost, let's welcome in Mr. Rob. How's it going, Mr. Rob?
I am pleased to announce, Dan, that intro ran fine. But it is absolutely terrifying, isn't it? When on your screen, it just pauses completely. But I can confirm it ran absolutely fine for me. Hello, everybody. Dan, how are you feeling after your day off?
I'm feeling great.
Awesome.
Feeling great. You know what that did for me? It afforded me some time. I got some extra work done, and then all of my mounting stuff came in for my lights. So now I got all the new lights set up, which look a little bit better. I can turn them off, and you can see the difference. Well, maybe I could turn them off. Never mind, it was working. See, nothing works anymore. There they go.
Well, time is money, or the opportunity to play video games. Choose your poison, so to speak.
There you go. Let's bring on today's guest, who has a better name than me. How's it going?
What?
I don't know if it's better. It's basically just the same thing with a slight variation.
There's more to it. It's meatier.
Do you want me to put a poll out for this? Who has a better Dan name?
How are you? Tell us about Uscreen. Tell us about where you hail from.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me, Rob and Dan. I hail from the southeastern United States. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, but I currently live in Alabama. So insert all of the stereotypes that you want. I can handle it all. And we just wanted, small town life or smaller town life, because traffic, when you spend 10 hours a week in traffic, it's just not worth it anymore.
No.
And as you mentioned, I work over at Uscreen. I'm a video expert and lead over there. I've been with Uscreen for about 2.5 years, and we are a video monetization platform. So we help creators sell their videos online. And we're kind of an all-in-one platform. So when you sign up, you get your own website where you can upload, host, and organize any videos you want to sell, choose how you want to monetize. We have marketing tools built in. You can get your own dedicated branded apps, all that kind of thing. So we work with thousands of creators all over the world to help them do just that. So yeah, I've been there 2.5 years running some YouTube channels over there, and we've grown from I was about number 14 when I joined the company, and now there are close to 150 of us around the world.
That's incredible. I wonder, and you don't need to name any specific channels, but I wonder what are the types of channels that your business typically would work with?
Yeah, great question. So it's kind of all across the board. When I joined, we had a lot of fitness-oriented customers. So as you saw at the top, Yoga with Adrian, who's a big-time YouTuber. I think she has 10 million plus subscribers on her YouTube channel. She uses the platform. We've got all sorts of entertainment. So essentially people who are creating their own Netflix of specific niches of content, whether that's homesteading content or let's say an LGBTQ streaming service. There's a lot of e-learning, there's kids content, faith and spirituality, arts and crafts, hobbies. Kind of like if you can create a premium video for whatever your hobby is, you could probably find a niche for selling it with our platform.
I think the biggest question for me here, is it Daniel or Dan? Which do you prefer? Let's just get this.
I prefer Daniel. Thank you.
Perfect. So we've got a Daniel and a Dan. Should I allow cookies? That's the biggest question I need answering right now.
Should you allow cookies?
On your website, yes.
Of
I'm really
course.
nervous about cookies, and I don't know whether to click them. Or am I going to get Oreos?
I usually just scroll
Hershey's.
until so I can ignore it until I forget it's even there, and so I don't have to make that decision.
Top tip
on any
All
website.
Right.
So thank you for being here. We were talking before the stream about what we wanted to cover today, and you had mentioned consistency is something you're really passionate about. It's something that comes up in these streams quite often, but I don't remember the last time we focused on consistency as just a topic of discussion, which is what we're doing today. And to let everybody know, we are going to have the stream broken up into 2 parts. We're all going to sit here and chat for about the next 20-30 minutes, and then we're going to open up to questions. So as you think of questions today, things you would like us to answer, we'll be going on for the rest of the stream, which is in total a 2-hour live stream answering your questions. And then the other thing I must show you is that we are not just a place where we do fun live streams all the time, although we do love our fun live streams. We have a whole suite of tools just for you because we are vidIQ. You can download vidIQ for free and get all of our tools. If you're a new customer, our whole suite of tools from the Boost plan for 30 days for free. The link is down below. And some of those tools include, Rob, our favorite new tool that has been slowly rolled out to our users. I think you know which one I'm talking about here.
Oh, don't I ever.
It is the title generator. So check this out. Get AI title recommendations. So let's say, what's an example of a channel? I'll save your title here. What's an example of like a channel? Somebody quickly.
I usually go for NFTs or cryptocurrency. Those are my hot button topics right now.
Okay, so what are NFTs? I'll just type that. That's not really a great title. It's a start to something, though. And let's see what our AI title recommendations say. What are NFTs? New financial technologies. It's not what that stands for, but that's kind of interesting.
It kind of is a new financial technology, but that's not what the abbreviation is.
Yeah. I could be tricked into thinking that's what it was. What are NFTs and how do they work? What is an NFT? New financial technology explained. And if you don't like any of these, you can always refresh, and you can keep tweaking your initial title as well to get some new ideas until you find a title that you like. And Rob, you used this recently to come up with an idea for a whole new video.
I did, yeah. So if you go back, Dan, to the one which has me looking at a red graph, I used I guess you would call it keyword or idea of YouTube mistakes. I think that's all I use, or something very similar to YouTube mistakes. And the title it came up with, if you want to go to the details section, the title that it came up with was 5 mistakes that send your YouTube channel to YouTube hell. And like that YouTube hell aspect was this really intriguing, emotional pull of it. So I used that title, and it ended up being a 1 of 10. So awesome. I let this tool dictate the pitch of a video to the audience. Then I made the video, and it worked. And I'm really happy with where it is right now.
Yeah. So there you go. That is just one of many tools here at vidIQ, and we're always playing with more. So check the link down below. And then if you want to learn more about Uscreen, the link to their channel is also down below, and you can also visit uscreen.tv to learn more about them. Cool. All right. Well, let's get into it. So consistency. I think all of us can relate to a time where we were like, I don't feel like it today. I'm not into it. Daniel, how do you typically? Oh, we have a poll too. How often do you upload? Interesting.
Yeah, I just thought I'd kick this one off as a kind of not essentially a consistency per se, but just generally how often do people post? And it looks as if people are trying to post a couple of videos a week at this point, which is, from a starting point, a generally solid foundation for consistency.
So if Daniel, if your schedule was 2 to 3 times a week, what would you be doing to try and like keep that up?
That's a big question. Because that's kind of the transition I'm going through right now. We've been doing 1 video a week across 2 channels for at least the last year, probably longer than that, which is fine, but I'm the only video person on our team. Right. And now we're moving towards, okay, well, let's bump up the production quality and the number of times we're publishing to 2, maybe 3 times a week. And then but how are we going to do that? Because I'm doing all the research, the writing, the shooting, the editing, the publishing, and then I've got some help with promotion because we do have a social team, but how do I figure out because the workload feels a bit tapped out. So how do I go keep the consistency and increase our consistency, to be honest, without, losing my mind and going bald in the next 6 months from stress? And so for me, a big part of that right now has been figuring out the pieces that I can and should outsource or delegate. So like we've been looking for an editor to join our team, which I know this is difficult when you're a solo creator, whereas I'm very fortunate in that I have resources with Uscreen where we're getting to the point that I can do that. So like right now I'm like, okay, let's get somebody to help with the editing, somebody that can do better than what I have been doing. That's step one. And then step two is, okay, well, I spend a disproportionate amount of time researching and writing scripts or outlines for the videos. Where can I get help with that? Is it just somebody to go do the research and then pull together kind of like a brief so that I can then turn that into a video outline or script? So those are kind of like the low-hanging fruits for me right now, but I know that that's not necessarily relatable for the everyday creator who's solo and just getting started. So in terms of that, it's just fine putting processes into place. That's what I did 2 years ago when it was like, I'm producing 2 videos a week for one channel, coming from zero to doing that. How do I do that? And for me, it was just figuring out, okay, how can I systematize all of this so that it's plug and play, almost like somebody else could come in and see the blueprint I've created and they could basically do the same thing with a slight learning curve within a month or two. And that has made all the difference for me.
Right. I want to say, Daniel, know that feeling. It is true. If you continue to do all of the work yourself, you will go bald, and you will eventually. Well, you've already grown a beard, so that bit's already taken care of. Yes. I would ask you, how have you systematized or templated your content so far? For example, for me, what I start to do, and these are very, very simple things that most creators can do, is build a template video project file where you have a lot of your assets already in place, like the intro is already there, the end screens, sound effects that you use a lot of the time, etc. And then maybe like a thumbnail template as well, so you know that you have the right colors in there, and again, elements that you often use. What are some of the basics that people can do to almost start creating a production line for their content?
Yeah, I think you nailed it in terms of the edit, like having all of those files readily available that you consistently use and having a almost a predictable structure to your videos can make a big difference in the edit. You can go from taking 2 days to edit to taking 4 to 6 hours to turn around a video that falls within that kind of template, which is what I found. Like my first few videos when I was getting started, it was, man, this is going to take 2 days for me to cut out the pause, like clip down the A roll, right, to get it to where I've got the story, and then figuring out what B roll I need and sourcing that, and then the sound design and all that. But once you get into a rhythm with that, that's pretty simple, I feel, to replicate, kind of as you described. The harder part for me was the scripting and the researching and the outlining, as I kind of indicated. And for me, that took the form of creating templates for a brief, which is basically an outline of what the script would be, and then a template for the script, saying like, here's, let's start with the hook. What's the hook going to be for this particular topic? And then how are we going to engage the audience and keep them watching after the hook? How are we going to set up the climax of the video? What's the climax? Do we need to re-engage people in between the setup and the climax? And then how are we going to kind of drive home the main point at the end and push people towards that call to action? And so we had kind of a template for an outline that we kind of would go do research and then plug in the items. And then I would look at that and make sure the flow was right and it was telling the right story, which sometimes can mean walking away for a day or two because you just get too close to it. It's like, okay, I need some distance. I need to get a higher level view of this. Is this the right structure? Is this the right story that we want to tell that will get people to take the action we want them to take at the end of the video, whether that's to watch another related video or another step down the funnel video, or is it, a off platform call to action? And then writing the script based on that, which if I did the outline correct, this writing the script itself was very simple because it was basically already done. And so for me, that was just a game changer. And then having somebody who I trusted to come and review those scripts. So we had somebody on our marketing team who would come in and offer. We were doing a lot of videos about marketing your video business, and so she could come in and offer feedback from a marketing perspective in addition to how the flow of the story went. That made a big difference. So I really value external voices and finding somebody you trust that can help you make your videos better before you even shoot it.
And just for context, how many days would you say it takes to create a video? Because you're saying that you almost have like a validation process, or you have somebody vet the script, for example. And then how many hours would you say it takes you to make a video from start to finish? That being the average video you may make in terms of video length and time it takes to research and edit, not like a super quick video or something that takes ages to put together.
On average, it's probably between 2 and 3 days. So probably between, if we're saying work hours, an 8-hour workday, it's probably between 16 and 24 hours total.
Right, so you're fully on it. You start on Monday, you finish on Wednesday night, and you've committed 8 hours a day to it.
Right. And there are videos that go longer. Last week, we went on location and shot 750 gigs worth of footage at a customer's farm. That one's going to take a little bit longer to work through. Yeah. But then there's a video like 2 weeks ago, there was all the stuff about Hank Green talking about why TikTok sucks and everything. I don't know if you guys saw that. And I did a reaction video to that. And I wrote the script, shot, edited, and published within 24 hours of of seeing that first video. So it balances out, I think, in the middle it's probably taken about 2 to 3 days for an average video. But based on, we're moving towards doing different types of content, not just the same kind of how-to stuff we've always done. So I think the production time per the different videos will begin to be a little bit different as we move into that.
Final question before I throw it back to you, Dan. Which do you prefer most? The ones that take a little bit of time to put together, you're building it slowly, or something where, as you say, the Hank Green TikTok one, like the idea came into your head, you were able to record it fairly quickly, done within a day?
That's a hard question to answer. Like going to, so we have a customer who has a farm and he just shoots farming content, got about 1 million subscribers on YouTube and has his own streaming site with Uscreen. And so we got to go spend a day at his farm and in his environment, filming with him, talking with him, eating with him. And I love those kind of shoots where it's just high effort, high intensity. They're just fun to hear people's stories. So I love those, but that Hank Green, I love the creator economy and I love talking about it. And his point that TikTok basically doubled their revenue in 2021, but the creator fund still sits at 200 million, despite them making 70% more. Like that is a big problem for creators, because if we don't raise a stink about that, then TikTok's going to be like, oh, they're setting a dangerous precedent for other platforms to do the same, which is an issue when it comes makes an issue for creators making a living from their content. So that was also a lot of fun because I'm very passionate about that. And I think there's a solution to that, which I talked about in that video, which is off-platform monetization. But that's so hard. I love telling stories though. I think it comes down to, I love having the opportunity to tell a story that makes somebody feel something, because that's why I got interested in video to begin with. It's because I grew up watching these movies that the movie would finish and I just sit there with this profound feeling of whatever it was the filmmaker wanted me to feel, whether it was Up and the Pixar's Up and I was feeling sorrow at gosh, what's the old man's name? I can't think of his name right now. The old man's loss, and also the joy at what he found in the relationship he had with Russell, the young boy, and Doug, the dog, and Kevin, the bird. Being able to sit there with that and process it. Or Inside Out. I'm going to reference Pixar because those are some of my favorite movies of all time. Like Pixar, the end of that, Inside Out, at the end of that movie, the message is like, it's okay to be sad. And for me, that was super profound because I'd never processed that, you know, while being aware of it. Like I'd never been aware of, oh yeah, it's okay to be sad. Like you don't have to push it down. So like making people feel those kind of things is what's super powerful to me about video. And so I love getting to tell stories where people are going to walk away feeling something or having a revelation about themselves or the world that is different from when they started watching the video. So I think I would lean probably more towards the higher intensity videos, or the farm shoot I was talking about. But I also love talking about the creator economy. So it's kind of a difficult one for me to balance.
I also don't know how I'd answer such a question, because it's a mixed bag. Like I pulled this up in the background here. This was an example of me reacting to a why StreamYard? Why? This was an example of me reacting to a video, or reacting to some news. YouTube had unlocked the community tab for 500 subscribers instead of 1,000, and so I jumped on it because I love the community tab. And Rob wasn't in town at the time. He would have like taken up a story like that, if he felt like, oh, we should cover this, and he would do that. I'm like, I got a little bit of extra time, and this was a rush job. Like I had to get this video out immediately. And I love the results. And as you can see, I had to have done it when I did because there's like no interest in that anymore. It was never going to be a search-based video either. I had to tease it. Millions of channels just unlock this. So it was like this whole thing that had to come together really, really fast. And then there's the videos that I've done where I get really in depth on a topic, and it takes me weeks to write it. Between all the other work responsibilities I have, and I'm very passionate about those. I think my favorite one right now would be about finding your ideal viewer, and I love the way that turned out. I don't know I don't know which one I like more. I certainly don't like when a video takes 100 years to complete, though. that's been, that's definitely happened to me. So, but I can see the reward in that, especially when you're going out to someone's farm and telling their story and like really getting in there and getting a taste of what their life is like. And I've been in those situations too. So it's very, very rewarding. All of this, though, coming back to like the topic of like consistency on YouTube, what can new creators kind of learn from these experiences? How can they kind of implement? Because we have a lot of creators here who might just be starting out a few days ago. They're nowhere near the levels we're talking about. We're talking about getting a team together to edit your videos and planning out weeks ahead, getting guests, getting topics planned out. Some creators here may be like, this is way above my I'm not here yet. Like, yeah. What are some good practices that you feel like newer creators could be putting into place to ensure that their channel doesn't have a period where nothing's being uploaded?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I attribute most of the growth that I've seen on YouTube so far to being consistent. I started a channel 2 years ago for Uscreen. It's gone from 0 to 4,000 subscribers, which isn't huge, but it's shown it like the trajectory, though it's slow, is starting to creep up. And that's because I showed up consistently every week for 2 years. And the focus was on providing value. The focus was on making sure that people walked away from the video with a tangible takeaway that they could apply to their videos or to their video business, and not focusing quite as much on, Uscreen can do this for you. We can do this for you at Uscreen. You should check out Uscreen. Like, that's not the goal. The goal for us is to provide value to creators, because when creators make more money, then usually we make more money at Uscreen. So, up until basically the last month, I was consistent with that one video a week per channel output. And now we're kind of transitioning our content, which was very much how to, towards a little bit more of some story driven stuff. And don't get me wrong, like my videos that I've posted, you can go back and look at some of the first ones from that channel I started. They're not amazing. Like, they're not great, but some of those still get decent views today because the value was there, because people come and they comment and they're like, this was so helpful. I was stuck and now I'm not, because I watched this video and got something valuable out of it. And if I had delayed getting that video out because I was disappointed in the quality, we would have missed that opportunity to help people. And so the questions that I've asked myself are like, is this video better than the last video I made? Because if it is, then I should be okay with publishing it, even though I know it may not be the absolute pinnacle of what it could be. Sometimes I think consistently good is better than occasionally great. So am I pushing myself to improve with every single upload? And today was a great example of that. Before this, I went to go film a video and it should have taken about 45 minutes to film. And instead it took close to 3 hours because I kept having audio issues. I went through 3 microphones before I got it to a level where I was like, this isn't perfect, but I've got to get this filmed because there's other stuff I've got to do. And I got to get this video out. And I know that even with a slight audio issue, this video is still better than the last video I published. And I think that's the most important part. Like if I allow me to nitpick everything I put out, I would never publish. And I think that's true for any creator. That is one of the biggest dangers, is especially for somebody like I care about the way things look and sound and the story that's being told. But if I nitpicked, I would never publish a single video. And I think we see that with creators all over the place. Anytime you're making a video, like you can always use that as an excuse to not publish. But it's the people who say, I've just got to do this anyway, and they publish and they're vulnerable and they put themselves out there and open themselves up to that video being a failure and a 10 out of 10 instead of a 1 out of 10. At least you showed up. That 10 out of 10 is still better than the 0 out of 10 that the other person had because they didn't publish. And I think consistency compounds on YouTube. A video you publish today can still be getting thousands of views years from now. And if you have, 52 videos that you published last year, because you published consistently every week for that year, those videos are all still going to be getting views in 2 to 3 years. And that compounds and helps your analytics and helps your channel and it helps your growth and helps your goals as a creator.
Exactly. So you have that evergreen video driving all this traffic to your channel. You have 51 other videos, and what happens? People watch that video, and that's the gateway. That's the entry point. And now YouTube's like, hey, maybe you like Uscreen. Maybe you want some more. And thankfully, You've been uploading consistently. You have a library of content. YouTube's tested a lot of it. It knows what works better than other bits of content, and now people are getting hooked. And I'm really, all the points you made, I'm really glad we got all those out in succession like that, because it all goes together. It all feeds into itself. There is one topic I do think we should address though, and that's the other end of this, where people say, okay, I need to be consistent. I have to upload no matter what. That's what vidIQ told me. That's what Uscreen told me. Upload no matter what. What about burnout? What are some strategies you might want to share with people to avoid the opposite end of that problem, where they push it too hard?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think batch filming is your best friend. I think anyone who's been a creator for a while would at least a lot of us would advocate for batch content creation, where instead of filming a video right before you have to publish it, you're filming 4 or 5 videos in a day. And then you've got 4 or 5 videos, which if you're publishing once a week, you've got a month of runway from that end. My goal since I started, and this is kind of like the carrot I'm going to be chasing and probably until I die, is that like I would love to be 3 months ahead of my publication schedule. That's like the dream. That's like I could take a week vacation and no one's ever going to notice or know. But the reality is, at least for me, and I think basically 90% or more of the creators I talk to, is like you can get about a month ahead. And beyond that, like there's just so much uncertainty and difficulty with getting that far ahead that it's just hard. But batch filming, putting yourself a week ahead takes so much stress off. It gives yourself some breathing room that's very much needed for your mental health and your sanity as a creator.
Yeah. Batch filming. Yeah. I love that as a strategy. It always takes a little bit to start, because there is a week, at least 1 week, where it represents double the work you were thinking of doing. Right. And I would say, as my own personal tip here, is the best time to do that is at the very beginning, when you're the most motivated to create. Because when I first started, I don't know about you guys, I made like 3 videos in my first day because I was so excited, and they weren't great videos, obviously, but I wanted to get stuff on YouTube because I had just like discovered this thing, and I feel like that's when people are the most equipped, when they're at their peak level of excitement. Like start working ahead, because you're going to slowly improve over time. It just kind of like that's another thing that kind of compounds on itself. You always have a little bit in the can, and then you're more prepared to take that break. You'll hit that point. You got to take a break, you know.
I have to drop in my counter argument, but not for the right reasons whatsoever. I cannot batch record. When I am creating a piece of content, I am so into that singular idea and video that I have to do that piece before I move on to the next thing. So don't get me wrong, I can try and get like a couple of days, sometimes a week ahead of myself. But once I start a video, I have to finish that video, which means that I have to film it, edit it, optimize it, all of that stuff. I can't take one topic, film for an hour, take another topic, film for an hour. I'm just giving you an alternative approach. I'm not saying this is the best way to do things, because I do many things in weird ways when it comes to content. But batch creating, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do that. I'm just a failed creator when it comes to that aspect of workflows.
I would say you're anything but a failure, Rob. I think one of the things that's also been helpful for me in planning ahead for where our content is going, because like I said, we've been doing very much how to kind of instructional content for a long time. And we're pivoting towards like, let's do some breakdowns of creators and keep doing some how-to content. Let's do like consistent live streams, but modifying and adding variety to the type of content we're doing can also help with that production burden. Because now instead of I've got to put out, a minimum of 4 videos a month. Okay, well, a live stream is a little bit different. Like it's not quite as intense in terms of the preparation and production for the most part. So now you're down to 3. Okay, well, one of those is going to be reaction video. Okay, so now you're down to 2. And the reaction video, don't get me wrong, you still should do some research and prep and planning for that type of content, but the pre-production that goes into it and even the post-production is a little bit lighter than, let's say, a deep dive into breaking down Colin and Samir's channel or binging with Babish or something like that. And so then you've gone down from 4 intense videos a month to 2, but the output is still the same. So I think finding a way to introduce some variety to your content is great for your channel because it gives you room to experiment, but it also can alleviate some of the burden that you might feel from the production demands.
I would like to ask a question to both of you here and everybody in the chat. It goes back to a little bit of a concept of no matter what, just turning up, showing up, week after week, year after year, making content. Has there ever been, well, I'm sure there is, this happens to every creator, that you find that you have a bottleneck or something that you're not very good at, and it's there in the background, and it's like, I'm going to figure this out at some point, but for now, it just needs to be done. I'll give you an example for me. I used to film in automatic mode on my camera for, I would say, a good 3 or 4 years, knowing that the quality, I was sacrificing some quality in order for there to be less variables in my recording. And then at one point, I just said, you know what? Today, I'm going to focus on getting these manual settings on my camera right so that my content looks better. And now I feel as if I've fixed that, and I can put that in my workflow. I know exactly what settings my camera needs to be, and I can press record, done and dusted. My next challenge is trying to decide whether or not I'm going to invest time in trying to be better just authentically on camera and just be able to press record and say what's in my head, or go the other route and really script out my content and try and introduce a teleprompter. And I still haven't decided which way I'm going to go on yet. So I'm just carrying on. I'm doing what I know right now in order to get the content out. So I was just wondering if either of you two have come across a similar challenge where it's there and you're going to address it at some point, and you did or you haven't yet. What do you think?
I'll let Daniel go first.
Yeah, I encounter those challenges all the time. For me, like if you go back and look at some of the early videos, lighting was my challenge.
Right.
I was like, I'll just use natural light. I'll just use a ring light for $90 off Amazon. And now that I've like invested in lighting, I'm like, oh, that really does make a really big difference in the quality of my videos, at least visually. And then after that, right now, what you mentioned, the scripting versus kind of off the cuff, is the one that I'm planning to invest in this year. And it's kind of like I go through these challenges in cycles. Like the lighting, that was my initial challenge, and for I'd say probably a year, I chipped away at lighting and bought higher quality lights, played around with them, and took tons of different clips to figure out what looked good and what didn't. And I still am not an expert by any means. Like, you're not going to find me on a Hollywood set rigging lights like anytime in the near future, but it's come a long way from where it started. And now I've been writing scripts and using a teleprompter as well to help with my video production, because I can just move through it really quickly once I've got that script on a teleprompter. But I want to get better at off the cuff stuff, which is why I love doing live streams and podcast interviews, because I think it starts to exercise that muscle in my brain that's like, you don't need a script. Like, there are people out there who can just sit in front of the camera,
that's
like
what
a Casey Neistat, and just talk to the camera, and then they can chip away and chisel out a story from what they've said. And that's where I would like to move it, being better at, it's almost like a public speaking thing in a sense, but being better at just going off of the cuff and not relying on notes or a word for word outline, because I think that is such a powerful skill for anyone to develop. And I think it'll be I think it's not just beneficial for me on video, but for life, for me to be able to more quickly and adeptly process my thoughts into my words.
I think that is the it factor, or the X factor, that most very successful content creators have, is that magnetic personality and the ability to seamlessly communicate with people. Because I think most creators, 99% of creators, start without that talent, and so they're able to get by with other bits of their content. That, they're providing value, but it takes longer to provide that value. But once you can start to instinctively deliver that value just from your knowledge or your personality, and it's there all of the time, that's still just beyond my grasp, as weird as that sounds. It still takes me forever to make videos that have some semblance of, that video seems so easy, how did he do that? And it really wasn't that easy. Sorry, I'm ranting here, Dan. What about you?
That is definitely one of the skills, because I rely heavily on a script. Basically, I call it an outline, and I find myself writing a full script. And I can't seem to stop myself from doing that. But what I have been trying to do is use my very long bullet points as just bullet points. I will, as I'm recording, skim them and try to say whatever it was I typed a little more naturally. And I feel like that's the first step into getting to a point where I can just bullet point rather than script, because the scripting part takes so long and I overthink everything I'm saying. The benefit of that is I get to go back the next day, because that's usually how I work. I'll script one day and then I'll come back to it after I've slept on it. And I get to say, okay, if I had literally said all these things in this order, would it have made sense? And I get to go back and kind of rearrange things. And that's been very helpful. But I'm trying to get to a point where I can bullet point things and I can speak a little more off the cuff. And that's a slow process. The other thing that's bothered me for a long time, and I would say as of today, is I don't know, I don't want to pat myself on the back too hard here. We'll call it 40% better, are these lights and everything in the background. The last couple of weeks, I've spent some time just trying to rearrange the space to make it something I'm just a little more proud to sit in, because I've just never, because of circumstances, this is it. This is what I have. This is the studio, and I can't do anything else about it. So I've been very self-conscious about it and very slowly trying to get to a point where I can level up a little bit. So that's another thing that I've been quality-wise trying to improve, is just, can I get my aesthetics to look just a little bit better? And there's still more I want to do with it, but yeah, that's been a recent improvement.
Yeah, the lower half of your map atlas is still bothering my YouTube feng shui.
I don't like it. It's just a thing. It helps with soundproofing. I literally don't like the thing, for videos. I like it in general. I just not for videos. But I don't have anything else right now. I got to get some play buttons or something, or just panels. Sound panels would be better.
How about
thanks for bringing that up.
A collection of play buttons that are actually sound panels, Dan.
Oh my gosh. Can they make those? That would be, if they're going to change.
Wouldn't those just reflect loads of noise?
No. You make them soft.
Oh, right. So we're not talking about actual play buttons.
No, YouTube
Right.
manufactures big, soft play buttons for soundproofing, but also because you got 1 million subscribers.
Sure.
Should.
We're off the rails now. Anyway, we've talked quite a bit about consistency. I do want to start bringing in some questions. Are there any, Daniel, are there any final thoughts on this topic before we start taking questions from the audience?
Yeah, I saw somebody mention in the comments that one of the hardest things about getting started is talking to the camera. And I thought that was a great call out because it was 100% the case for me. I actually, before I ever started YouTube videos, I realized, I think this was probably 2015 or 2016, that knowing how to talk to a camera was probably going to be a valuable skill for me over the next 10 years in some capacity. And I was working in marketing at the time. I wasn't making videos or talking to the camera. I was just like, that might be a valuable skill to have, to be comfortable in front of a lens, because a lot of people get intimidated and they just zone out. Like they'll just stare at the camera with those kind of dead eyes. They don't blink. The face stays the same. They don't move. They kind of turn into Ricky Bobby at Talladega Nights. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands. And what I did was, okay, well, let me shoot some videos of myself and I'm just going to talk about my opinions. I'm going to pick a topic and talk about my opinions and just sit and talk to the camera. My wife worked night shifts, so she left for work, and I would just set up my camera and talk to my camera for 20, 30 minutes. And I would take that footage, put it in my laptop, watch it back, and then compare it to like TED Talks, YouTube videos of inspirational speakers or public figures, and figure out, okay, how are my mannerisms different from what they're doing? How is my inflection different from the way that they're inflecting their words? How are their pauses impacting what they're saying? Like if you're saying something impactful, you don't want to be talking really fast. If you're saying something impactful, you want to slow down and leave some breath and some space between your words so that it sticks with people. And so I just was doing that and breaking it down. And to me, that took my learning curve for being on camera, like shot up the graph before I ever posted a YouTube video, because I went ahead and just did that work. And then those videos don't exist. I deleted them because they were painful to watch, but it helped me to look back at myself and critique before I ever published on YouTube. So I think that's a great place to start if you're comfortable doing that with yourself, and especially since no one will ever see it.
Yeah. I love that. I love how you outline that. I think something that, because this just popped in my head as you were saying that, I noticed this especially with younger creators. YouTube is seen as this really fun job. And I think the part that gets forgotten a lot of times is that it is a job. You know, whether you're getting paid or not, if you take YouTube seriously, it becomes work. And there's aspects of it that you're going to love, and there's aspects of it you're not going to like so much. And I imagine, Daniel, you probably didn't love sitting in front of the camera and practicing. You're not actually making content, you know, it's awkward and weird, but you felt like you had to do that. You had to sharpen the skill somehow, and you weren't ready to, you know, go on YouTube yet. So that's,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, when I joined Uscreen, I was actually under the impression I wasn't going to be on camera. I joined thinking like, I'm going to be the video guy for Uscreen, but I'm going to produce stuff. We'll find somebody to be on camera and I'll manage everything else. And then it was like, we have limited resources and we don't have anybody. Can you do at least a few to get us started and like create a template for what will be in the future? And then it turned into, man, being on camera is like maybe the simplest part of what I'm doing at this point. And not that I'm amazing. There's always room to get better, but certainly come a long way in doing that. So I did not think I was going to be on camera. That was not my goal when I set out by any means.
Yeah, that's, I love how that kind of happened. That's great. So I wanted to get that point out there that whether you're gaming on YouTube or you're doing vlogs, whatever kind of content you're making, know that there's like time involved. You have to level up these skills. Think of it this way, like professionals out there in a field have something to offer YouTube, right? If you're a mechanic and your thing is fixing cars and you want to start doing it on YouTube, that's your thing was fixing cars, not lighting and editing videos. And that's okay. But you need to learn those skills too, or find somebody who also has them that you can pay. But that's all part of it, you know? And I think there's like this step people skip. They're like, well, I'm not on TVs and it's just YouTube. It's just the internet. So whatever, I'm just going to do it. And so they just turn on their ceiling light and they just get their phone and they start talking. And that's great at first for practice, but really the bars have been raised. And no, there's like elements to this that need to be polished over time.
I've had an idea. This may be a terrible idea, but let's challenge ourselves, right? Okay. So what I want people to do in the chat is hashtag challenge myself, and then tell us the one thing that you need to get better at now, whether it's being in front of camera, better thumbnails, lighting. And let's the trio of us, let's see if we can collectively come up with like one suggestion to get this person started on that journey, whatever that is. Do you think that sounds like a good idea?
Yes.
Thanks, Dan. You sound very confident in your yes there.
I'm not.
All right, then. So
sounds amazing.
Let's see. All right. Okay. So here I've got one already. Here we go. Right. So Joy Root, challenge myself editing. So what do you think is the one thing that this person should do to improve their editing?
Who wants to go first? We didn't structure this at all.
I did. So
let's start with Daniel, and then
all right.
Let's go guest first to put
one
the
each
pressure on them.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. One idea each.
Yeah.
That's tough. Gosh, I hate talking about myself, but like that's my frame of context for this. Like the thing I've done recently challenging myself editing is I never really sound designed before. I never added any VFX of any, or not VFX, that's visual, SFX to my videos. And some of the challenge to myself was let's add a layer of sound effects and see if that doesn't help with engagement and retention on YouTube. Because if you're just watching the same clip for a minute and there's no other cuts, but then you add in some sound effects, that can keep people engaged, even if they're not consciously aware of it. So maybe the challenge is let's add a new layer of sound effects to your next video. Like,
cool. If I was going to give some advice, so for your track, look at your audio waves and try and get as close to the beginning and end of those audio waves as possible to remove like weird pauses where you're looking at the viewfinder when you're ending your recording and stuff like that. And also just experiment with just ever so slightly overlapping those clips so that it's, I think that's a J cut and L cut. It's one of the cuts, yeah, J cuts and L cuts where it sounds like you're almost talking over yourself for like a fraction of a second, but it really does increase the speed of the pace of a video. And as you move from that transition from one to another, think about zooming in a little bit or zooming out a little bit or positioning yourself one side or the other in frame. And that just adds a bit of a pattern interrupt as well. All right, those were the two easy ones, Dan. What about you?
I was afraid you were going to take that one because I've literally been doing J cuts in my editing as of the last few videos I've done, and it takes a heck of a lot longer for me to get that A-roll laid out the way I want now. But I love the results, so I'm continuing it. But I was going to say, if you're not already, you should be experimenting more and more with B-roll, whatever that is for you. Obviously, if you were just talking directly into the lens, then that's pretty easy. Then whatever you're talking about should be appearing on screen. If you're gaming, though, that might play hand in hand with what Daniel was saying when it comes to sound effects. A lot of gaming channels will put funny images and things, and because there's no B-roll, what they're talking about is shown on the screen already. That's the A-roll, but they'll add maybe funny memes, or if there's a sound effect, it'll couple with an explosion on the screen. You know, all kinds of fun things to pattern interrupt. So however that looks for you, but you need to be doing your best, because it all goes back to retention, right? You need to be doing your best to hold people's attention.
There you see, there's 3 awesome pieces of advice there. Let's try engagement. Daniel.
I'm going to give a 4th about editing real fast. Go watch Hayden Hillier Smith's YouTube channel. He's an editor for Logan Paul and has done some amazing YouTube videos about getting better at editing, and just watching that and rubbing up against his content will help you as an editor.
Yeah, agree. I think after watching one of his videos, every single one of your future videos will be half as long as it was. Like, you just trim out pretty much everything.
Yeah,
I think it was
absolutely.
I think it was him that mentioned eyeline. One of the editor gurus I watched mentioned the eyeline, and how they took videos from all kinds of channels I recognized and just pointed out that their eyeline did not line up. So if you're punching in and out of your face, my eyeline right now is right here. So imagine a line drawn across my screen with my eyes. And if I were to punch in, the goal is to get my eyes in the same exact position, even though my face got bigger on the screen. And that helps with engagement. The next challenge was engagement. And that's going to help you with your engagement if you're talking to the lens. People are going to be connecting with your eyes. So whether you're punching in and out, it's not as jarring.
All right. Jumped in early there, Dan.
Sorry.
What about you, Daniel?
It all came together.
Engagement. Copy Mr. Beast and just scream at the camera in the first 10 seconds and you'll have everyone hooked.
For me,
totally kidding.
Try to engage with your audience directly in the first minute. For example, people tend to ask questions at the end of a video once it's finished when the audience retention is quite low and those people are already engaged. But if you can ask your audience a question in the first 30 seconds, a minute, that you encourage them to answer in the comments below, then you're getting them to think about the conversation or the story that you're about to deliver. So yeah, remember that you are allowed to engage your audience at the beginning of a video, not just at the end or in the middle.
All right. I started looking as you were talking for the next one.
I saw thumbnails quite a few times in the comments.
Okay, let's do. Oops,
Sorry.
I totally jumped on you.
Let's do this one.
Okay, better thumbnails. Go for it.
I'd say a great way to challenge yourself is for your next 5 thumbnails, make a thumbnail without text.
Oh, yeah, like that one.
It's like if you can communicate that, I mean, that's the goal. Your goal is to get people to click without having to say a word. And your title, you should pull them in with the visuals of the thumbnail so that they then look at the title. It clicks in their mind and they click that thumbnail. So for me, that's the challenge I'm putting on myself.
Just as a reference point here, we got text here.
Listen,
we got text.
How dare you?
Well,
how dare you?
Well, wait.
But like I said, I'm challenging myself for this for my next 5 thumbnails. Let's do this without text and see if we can't communicate what we want people to understand without using any words.
There's a difference. I want to point something out real quick. There's a difference in the text in just a couple of these. So RIP Creator Economy. I don't have your magnifying glass, Rob, but it's on the right side there.
Yeah, I'll get you there. Then I'll get you there.
So it's the Tombstone one. I would consider that, in my opinion, that is not text in the thumbnail because the text is on an object and it's tying into the image, the whole image. Does that make sense? It's hard to articulate this. But if I were making a thumbnail about a tombstone and the text on the tombstone happened to be helpful to communicate what I was trying to say, that's kind of that's like the difference. But then again, you have the one $400,000 a year. Could you have made that thumbnail without the text?
Absolutely.
There's a difference.
It's already in the title.
Yeah. But that
could have just put a big money bag in the middle there instead.
Exactly. Yeah. There's always symbols. I mean, and I think today, especially young people have it even easier because emojis are just everyone talks with emojis now in texting and everything else. And a lot of us old farts grew up without that. We start with emoticons and use them once in a while. Now you have like all these emojis that work on any device. So there's imagery now, and it's so much easier to communicate what we're trying to say without actually using words. That I don't know if I have a better advice for thumbnails. I guess what I will say, and this kind of goes back to gaming channels because I see this all the time. Some games are visually like the characters are nice and big, and there's no excuse not to take one of them and like cut them out and make them huge, like your avatar in a game, for example, like if you're playing an MMO, and let it take up like a lot of the frame. A lot of people leave negative space in their thumbnails, is I guess what I'm getting at. And I see gaming channels all the time where they'll just use a still from the game because they don't know what to put there. It's like, we'll take your character and then put another object, not a whole wide shot of something. Put like an object from the video that you're talking about next to that character. Maybe the character can do an emote where they're pointing and it catches your eye because you're like, oh, I recognize that character from Elder Scrolls Online. And they're pointing at this sword that's broken, and the video is about the worst weapons in Elder Scrolls Online. So, tell a story with it and try to do some work on these. Don't just take a screenshot that you think looks pretty, because when you shrink it down to thumbnail size, is that going to translate? Most of the times, especially in games, it doesn't.
And just as much as making thumbnails with no text will help you think very differently, about the messaging in your thumbnail, making the thumbnail before you make the video is also another unique challenge, but it really helps you guide the flow of the content that you're going to make.
Yep.
If you know what that is going to be, first of all, because some people do it towards the end of the production process, myself included, and I'm really challenging myself to reverse that at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. I guess there's also the fact that people try to put too many things in a thumbnail. You know, I would say no more than 3 elements. You know, you don't need, if you're talking about all the characters you can marry in Stardew Valley, you don't need a picture of every single character you can marry in Stardew Valley. Pick your favorite one. Pick everyone's most hated one. Like, make them the focus of that thumbnail. You know, you don't have to. A lot of people try and shove everything they can into a thumbnail. Like it's like a, you know, a 1-page magazine ad for their video, and that's just not, that doesn't work.
Oh God, look at this, got one here. I disagree. Text is really important.
It depends on the channel.
That comment.
There are some channels where it is. I mean, we've seen it.
And I would say it's not that it's not important. I don't think that's that. If that's what I communicated, I'm sorry. That's not what I was trying to say. What I'm saying is that it's a challenge for you to make thumbnails without text, because text can be a crutch almost for creating thumbnails. It can be it's a way to let yourself off the hook for really digging into what's going to be the most compelling click when you use text, whereas doing it without text forces you to think totally different about the message you're communicating with your video and what you want people to feel instantly as they see that image. So I don't think it's unimportant. I think it can be a valuable addition to thumbnails, but I don't think it's essential, and I think it's a nice challenge to work without it.
Usually creators come from a place where they're using just far too much text. And so if you can challenge somebody to use no text, then hopefully you get to a happy medium where it's just 1 or 2 words that are really going to help with the content.
I just in the background, I pulled up the channel, and I would say the way they're using text, they're using it for impact. You know, so we're not doing channel audits, but I'll pull it up real quick here. You know, they're like, Halo is mine. That's not text that's necessarily needed, but it helps get the point across, you know, for the video, the title they've created. Wake up, Sony fanboys. You know what I mean? Like, these things don't necessarily need to be there, but I think it might add to the, you know, to the personality of the video itself. So there are times they don't use text in their thumbnails.
If you look at the bottom row of thumbnails, that was it, Salty Manchild, that is an example of far too much text, which is difficult to read. So it's the bottom row, second from the right, Dan.
This one?
Yeah, that one. I think that's an example of just far too much text. Like, I'm gonna have to read it, then I'm gonna have to look at these images, and then the title to try and decode what the video is about. And I'm already 10-15 seconds into that process, and as somebody just scrolling through a feed, I'd already be on to the next thing.
Yeah, but to each their own. I mean, I try not to use text in my thumbnails. However, there are times where I found it works. Like, oh, I think I can make this text funny. I think I can make this text work for me, and you know, I think the thumbnail is better for it. So it's kind of, there's no, when it comes to YouTube and it comes to advice you hear on this channel or any channel, there's never, I think all of us would agree, there's never one solution. You know, we can't say definitively text is bad or text is good on thumbnails, because
we often have to use numbers on our thumbnails, Dan, don't we? Just because of in the space that we're in, like a milestone that somebody's trying to reach, or a percentage going up or down, view counts, subscriber counts.
It's true. Are we ready to take some questions?
Yeah, we can do.
Cool. All right. That was a fun exercise, though. I think, and there's some interesting challenge myself still coming in. Some of them are very long, though. I think people are using it as the question hashtag. So now's probably the right time to move on. So the way this works every week is we're going to take your questions here for about the next hour. And if you would be so kind as to use hashtag question in front of your question, it helps us discern who's talking amongst themselves versus directing a question at us. We're going to try to take some of these and put them in the background. So you don't have to keep asking your question over and over and over. Once in a while is okay, but we appreciate it if you, I meant to star that. We appreciate if you ask it once and then hang out for a bit. So I am starting to star some of these, Rob. I don't know if we want to start with Star Life Studios here, though.
Sure.
Based on what Dan said, should I aim to take separate photos for my thumbnails?
Absolutely. In most cases, a clip from the video is not going to cut it for the thumbnail just because of the framing and how it looks. It's probably motion, so there's a bit of blur going on. Some people can get away with this, especially I think prank or entertainment or comedy, where they're trying to capture a moment in a video. But usually what you're going to be doing is getting a nice shot of you, perhaps with a reaction, YouTuber face, etc., and then adding some more elements to it. For example, I have just a wall over here where I will just stand in front of it and take different poses and pictures, sort of alluding to what Daniel mentioned much earlier on in the live stream about having processes and templates in place. I have like 150 different images of me just doing different poses, whether it's shock, pretending to hold something, saluting at the camera, the fists up in the air, just so I can drop them very quickly into the thumbnail as I'm starting to create it.
All right. I would agree that you definitely should have a separate process for creating thumbnails. I've done it before where I've taken like a screenshot. I make a lot of gaming content on the side, so my references are always gaming, Daniel, if in case you were wondering why I keep going back to this. I tend to, if it works, if I find a still shot from the video while I'm editing, I'll grab it and put it aside. It's just sitting on my desktop waiting to turn into a thumbnail, and then I'll start from there editing that up. But it's rare. Usually I have in mind what I want my thumbnail to look like. I go back into the game. I put my character in different poses. I take items of maybe I take pictures of the items that I'm talking about in the video, and then I'll take it into Photoshop and start moving stuff around, putting arrows on things where I feel like they'll fit. So I'm not at the mercy of whatever footage I captured for that video. I can kind of contort this however I want, and it always comes out much more eye-catching.
I just want to show something here if I can. As an example, I pretty much always use this. Is this going to work? Let's see. Forgive me. This is on my Uber widescreen monitor.
Oh my.
But I usually start with this thumbnail template because it has the background in place. It has the text that we tend to use. It has a YouTube logo. And it has me set up because I do some adjustments to my actual face. Like I can bring it a little further down in the layers, and that will change, I think, the color of me. And that would then allow me to change, if I'm like green, yellow, whatever. So I have all of these like different layers in place. So I'm starting with a thumbnail template. And these are the general elements, which is usually, I might use some text. I'm probably going to be using some sort of YouTube logo or other symbols, and then my reaction to it, and then I take out, add in, and that sort of thing.
So got a bunch of thumbnail questions. I did pull some in, and there's also this question here. What are your opinion on premieres? Do you think they help or hurt the amount of views a video will get? Daniel, do you have any experience with premieres? Because Rob and I have been we keep threatening to try this. We haven't done it.
I have never done it. I only have experience watching or ignoring premieres. It's really what happens. They annoy me because like you can't scrub through the video, which is part of why I watch YouTube videos. I want to scrub through and rewatch parts or fast forward through things. And I get annoyed when I go to something and it's a premiere. And I think people use it not knowing how it affects their overall viewership. And I think it's great for big channels. Like they can build hype around it. Like I think Dave Portnoy and Barstool, they do it with some stuff very well, and they get like a very good live audience for their premieres. But I see a lot of small channels doing it, and I think it tanks their video performance. But that's all kind of subjective opinion.
It's such a good point about you're not able to scrub through a video on demand when it premieres. Mm-hmm. And it's a similar way in that you see a thumbnail and you click on it expecting to watch it, and then actually it's premiering in 5 hours. It's different to the expectation of a general viewer experience. So it has to do something different and special. And I'm in agreement with you, Daniel, and that I don't think smaller creators should be using premieres. But I've not used them myself. I'm too afraid to use them, worried that it's going to tank my video. So I don't tend to use it.
We've talked to creators on the stream about their success with premieres. You know, so it kind of. I think it really, this goes back to, it depends. It depends on the channel. It depends on the topic. It depends on the size of the channel. I would agree with that for sure. I think if you're wanting to test them, just do it sparingly. You know, try it with, make it a big deal. Like if you're going to premiere something worth premiering. You know, think of a premiere. Like there's movies that go straight to TV and there's movies that get a red carpet premiere. You know, so have you made a video worthy of a red carpet premiere? And maybe once in a while you do, and you're really hyped about it. And so a few hours before it actually uploads, you make it a premiere. And then the other important thing to know about those is you need to be in chat. If anything else, people cannot scrub through this video while it's in premiere mode. So if anything else, you have to be in chat with your audience, because it's like a live stream. You know, that's kind of why you're doing it, for community engagement. So yeah, I guess some mixed thoughts there on premieres. So a couple more thumbnail questions. Now the topic of today's live stream is consistency. So I am in particular looking for questions that pertain to that, but ask your YouTube questions. They'll still probably get pulled up. For gaming thumbnails, is it better to blur the background and have a character / avatar in focus? I picked this one because I think the immediate answer is yes, but I think I wouldn't say just gaming thumbnails. What about you guys?
That is a classic way of doing a gaming thumbnail, isn't it? In terms of having almost like a screenshot or loading screen background, which is blurred out, and then having characters, perhaps items in the foreground, and being very much in focus. I would say that's a staple. That's a standard. But if you're going to do that, then you're almost following the herd. And so how do you make that thumbnail then stand out from the rest of the crowd, since the gaming space is very competitive? But it's a good starting point.
I agree. I think it's a great starting point. It's I mean, that's kind of the same thing we do with our thumbnails. Like we start with a person and we just remove the background. Yeah. That's like the first step of our thumbnail design, is picking the person that's going to be in the thumbnail, removing the background, and then figuring out what other elements are going to help us communicate what's happening in this video. And then from there, is the person even necessary for the thumbnail? That's another question. Like, is that actually helping communicate what this video is about?
Yeah. You definitely don't want a bunch of stuff in focus. It's just, you want people's eye to be drawn to something, and if relevant to the title in the video, that's the best case scenario. So yeah, I would say this is definitely not exclusive to gaming channels. Just, you want to simplify your thumbnails, and a lot of times that means cutting out your character or you from the background.
It's very similar to the concept of less text. Usually thumbnails require less elements, because they're either too chaotic or they're very flat. So your eye isn't necessarily guided towards a particular thing on the thumbnail that you should be seeing first.
Is it wrong to not use thumbnails? I simply don't.
99.9% of the time, I would say yes, but there may be occasions, some unusual channels that benefit from not having thumbnails, and it's a mute question, I think, for shorts. I don't think people necessarily need to create thumbnails for their shorts unless they expect lots of views from non-shorts traffic.
I pulled up a channel here that I've long known about. We've got 500,000 subscribers. This is Direwolf20. They're a Minecraft creator who, they do mod tutorials. That's like their whole thing. And they do kind of let's plays with the mods, and they do separately these tutorial series. Anyway, you'll notice that they're never using custom thumbnails. You can see the taskbar. You can see just some random bits of UI that you can't really make out, and they're always just kind of looking in a direction at something really complex. And this has been their style for as long as this channel's been active, which is many years now. Some of these are crazy.
Most popular.
Yeah.
Have they literally never used a custom thumbnail, or what appears to be? Yeah.
7, 8, 9 years ago, we're not using custom thumbnails. In fact, they have black bars on their videos.
Yeah, I would say just imagine if this creator experimented with custom thumbnails for 50
always
videos.
I've always felt this way about this creator, but it's kind of nice that they can get tens of thousands of views even today, and that's one part of their process they don't worry about. There's also a theory I have, especially about certain gaming channels, where I kind of feel like I've been seeing this in different niches. I kind of feel like not using a thumbnail is their thing, or maybe it just doesn't look like they've used a thumbnail, but it's a deliberate choice to pick a screenshot that is relevant to the title, but it's not overproduced. They literally just take a screenshot that works, and that level of unprofessionalism, quote unquote, is something that appeals to a certain kind of person. But I think it really depends on what it is you're doing on YouTube. I still would love to see. I would love to see a period of time where Direwolf actually sat down and made custom thumbnails. But he produces so much content. I guess he's just felt like, well, it gets views or it doesn't, and it gets views.
Oh,
he's doing just fine.
Outsource it. Get somebody who's good at making thumbnails, and pay them $100 to make 10 thumbnails. Or however much the going rate is.
I've tested the theory of I'm not gonna overproduce a thumbnail. I'm gonna pick a screenshot that's very deliberate, but I'm not gonna overproduce it and see how it does. And there are certain videos it works for. But I think we're talking about such a niche case here. I think in general, especially if Rob with Scooby isn't getting the results they want to see, then that's the answer for them. They should be testing custom thumbnails and making that one of the skills they look to improve upon.
I would say it's similar to uploading a video without doing any editing. You just upload it raw. You're not giving yourself the opportunity to make that video better through editing. You're not giving yourself the opportunity to make that thumbnail more clickable by creating a custom one.
Yeah. You want to give your videos every opportunity. Every single video you make could be the thing that takes your channel off into a whole new level. It could attract so many new viewers. Every video you make is that opportunity. Just don't work super hard on the title and thumbnail and then not edit your video either.
I was just thinking, it'd be really funny if this person said, I don't bother with thumbnails, but I spend hours on keyword research and making sure my tags are all right and proper.
Right. That was me at one time. Hated making thumbnails. Hated it. I see channels consistently change their thumbnail about an hour after uploading. Why do they always do that, Rob?
Because the video might not be performing very well. For example, the one we were talking about earlier with the mistakes that send you to YouTube hell. I originally had an image with me with horns above my head, with kind of like an evil look. And the video wasn't performing very well. And I was very sensitive to the thought that this is quite an unusual thumbnail. And I'm not sure if people are going to like this thumbnail. And so I decided, if you saw it by first 24 hours, Dan, it might show you that.
That's what I want to see.
Yeah. But the problem is YouTube is tracking numbers really weirdly at the moment.
Yeah.
We've noticed this where it's just not giving us the views for like a 30 minutes or whatever. So I did change it in the first hour to what it is now. And the channel seemed to recover. The video seemed to recover quite well. It was like 8 of 10 for the first 2 hours or so.
Yeah, it's well above that line. It's getting, the separation is just starting to get to a good point too. But yeah, that's what you'll see that a lot. You'll see, I've noticed a lot of creators change their thumbnail in the first, day, first hour. Do you often change your thumbnails, Daniel?
I try not to because I feel like I get trigger happy with it. Or maybe trigger happy is the wrong word. I hit the panic button repeatedly because what'll happen is like I'll have 3 thumbnails. I feel really solid about all 3, and I'll pick the one I think is the best, and I put it in, and that first data that comes back and it's like 1.9% CTR, and I'm like, oh no, fire everything. Just push the button, and I'm like, okay, just throw something up, and then I'm religiously checking it in panic mode every 5 minutes, refreshing. I'm like, oh, it went up to 2.1. Oh, it's back down to 1.4. I got to put in another one. Hit the panic button again, and that's not the right way to do it. That is not a wise approach, but I just get these impulses sometimes like I gotta fix it. But I definitely do pay attention to that, and I think it's been helpful. Like I've seen videos with 2% click-through rate with that first thumbnail, you give it 24 hours, maybe marginally comes up, and then you swap it out or tweak that original one and improve it or simplify it. And then it shoots up to 7 or 8% or whatever it is. So yes, I do it, and I see it all the time. I think Mythical Kitchen, which is a spinoff of Good Mythical Morning, I see them change thumbnails. It seems like almost every upload. Like I'll see the video and it'll be like published 2 hours ago and it's one thumbnail. I'll come back that night and it's a totally different thumbnail for the same video. And I'm like, oh, they're swapping them out. Like it seems like methodically or consistently, and it seems like there's a strategy to it, but I see them do it and I'm like, all right, if that big channel can do it, like I can probably benefit from doing it as well and paying attention to the data.
What some creators will do, I believe, is they will make a thumbnail that appeals to their existing audience. So like in the first 24, 48 hours, it's something that is going to make sure that they click on it. So it might include their own face on it. And then once it gets shared out to a broader audience who are not familiar with the content, they'll change the thumbnail to try and have a broader appeal. Dan, could you share your screen again? Because I want to show everyone the dilemma I've been going through like last night and this morning. Go to channel content. So again, as always, sneak peek. If anybody wants to watch this video, they can do. So this top one here, can you just go to edit screen? Yeah. So this is what the thumbnail looks like right now. Yeah, the proven tactic to make your videos go viral. Now, my original title for this was going to be "It's All About Timing." ... And this was going to be the thumbnail. Let me quickly share that. So just imagine the title is "It's All About Timing," showing that you have a sudden increase in views. And then I thought, should it be simple instead? Or should it be something along the lines of the life and death of a viral video? So I changed it to this thumbnail. And then somebody told me, I think you need arrows in it. All right. So I'll put arrows in it. And then I'll change the arrows to this. And then I thought, these are all very different thumbnails to what vidIQ usually does. I probably need one in my back pocket that it is this general me like celebrating with a graph going up. And I think those are all of the thumbnails. And then I've ended up with this one with a big impact statement of 40,000 views per hour. I have no idea if this is the right thumbnail, but at least I've got about 17 different options to swap in and out. When, as you said, Daniel, I hit the panic button when it's 10 of 10 after 20 minutes.
I've been having a thing on my personal channel where my videos have been starting at 10 out of 10. And then if I don't panic and I just wait and I trust it, they start to come up. And I've had some start at 10 out of 10 and get up to 3 out of 10. Mm-hmm. And it's because certain videos, the average gets really shaken, especially if you have a video that's like a breakout success. Like it's going to be a while before you hit 1 out of 10 again, right? So that's off the table. And then if you have a few of those in a row, 2 and 3 are also off the table, you know, and now it's weird. Like my average on that channel is so that, you know, that gray margin we were looking at, it's so thin. It's like the difference between 1 and 10 now for me is like so thin, and it's weird. And it always fluctuates. And so I can't be trigger happy, when in the past I've had success changing thumbnails, and nothing will make you more trigger happy than having a thumbnail change go well. You have a thumbnail change and it does from this to this with your video. You're like, I'm a god. I can do whatever I want now. And so whenever a video is underperforming, you change that thumbnail, and then when it doesn't happen again, you're like, okay, I'm an idiot. Yep, I'm a dumb idiot, and I should get off YouTube.
Yep.
Anyway, forgot we're answering questions.
But this is like a therapy session for thumbnails almost.
It is. I think everybody is. This is a safe space where we can all share our thumbnail grievances.
Yep.
Why is it that after I put my tag, my video doesn't have performance? Did I pick this question?
No, I did.
Okay. I don't understand this question.
Well, I assume it's why after I'm putting tags in my videos are they not performing?
Oh, got it.
That's what I assume the question is. And the simple answer is stop worrying about tags and focus 95% of your time, energy, and effort to the title and the thumbnail, because that's what people see. The tags, at very best, are tiny bits of information that YouTube may use to categorize your content in search and maybe link it to similar videos, but it's Really not important. So tags are very unlikely. Like we've just been talking, you know, you're switching a thumbnail and that has a significant impact. Tags simply don't have that same influence anymore.
Yeah, I like to think about tags as like if you were going hiking on a trail up a mountain to get to the top and you decided to put your own little trail markers along the path, the park rangers are probably like, that's nice. Like, thank you for putting those there, but we have our own trail markers because that's what YouTube's doing. Like, they're scanning every single frame of your video and labeling it with the AI. And the labels that they put in your videos of like, this is a person's face, this is a logo of Uscreen, there's a microphone. Like, they use those labels, their own AI labels, to then kind of categorize and kind of serve as their own tags, which your tags are great, but like ultimately I think their labels carry a bit more weight. So I think tags are nice, but it's kind of like a good for us type thing. I think they used to be far more valuable than maybe they are today.
I think so too. I think it's a priority thing. I think before the AI wasn't that good, right? So they needed tags and they needed as much data from the user as possible to categorize the videos. So title, description, and tags were something everyone was really focused on. The AI has gotten so good now that tags and things like it have become a less priority, and it just makes sense. Our AI is better and better at this. We're going to start trusting it more. Not that the user is not trustworthy, but we feel like our system can do it better. So tags are just lower on the list of priorities when YouTube's recommendation system is looking for ways to categorize your video. And it just makes sense over time. It's going to continue to, that's going to continue to widen that gap. I got one here. Is it true that white, red / black color on thumbnails hurts the click-through rate on the YouTube algorithms? I'm guessing is what they meant. Since these 3 colors are used by YouTube itself. This sounds like a rumor.
An urban legend.
Yes. Did you pick this one, Rob?
I think I did, yes. I probably just saw red and I thought, oh, they'll be talking about red text on thumbnails. It's a bit more nuanced than that. So this has nothing to do with the YouTube algorithm. The YouTube algorithm / recommendation system is following what the audience does. So it's whether or not white, red, or black colors impacts whether or not somebody is going to click on that, a human being is going to click on that thumbnail. And I think it's more a case of how those whites, reds, and blacks are used. And if they're used in a very effective way, then I think they will get more clicks. I think we had some data from a very long time ago, which seems to suggest that colors with dominant thumbnails with dominant colors such as white and blacks tended to get more clicks. But as I say, that data is quite old these days. And I wouldn't say one color or the other in the broad YouTube space has an impact. It's probably much more defined by audiences. For example, I'm just thinking of style hauls, shopping hauls and makeup channels tend to have brighter, whiter colors. That tends to be the theme within that space. But sometimes if you do something that's completely out of a box and is the very different colored thumbnails compared to our competition, that might stand up as well when you're going through search and so forth.
I'd say like games have color palettes. Like Fortnite has a very specific color palette.
Yeah.
And that might matter a lot when you're making Fortnite thumbnails. You wouldn't want to just start from scratch and change the color of every element to something you like more, right? Like you want it to look familiar, and the color palette is part of the way a game looks familiar to its audience. So yeah, it kind of comes down to what's going to work for your audience. I don't believe there's anything YouTube has put in place that said, okay, all the colors are fine except for these colors, and I'm going to not prioritize these videos because these are my colors. You can't have that's silly. So if there's some kind of urban legend you heard or something like that, I would just take that out of your brain. I'd delete that information.
Yeah, I've never heard that before. In terms of colors, the thing I've found most helpful that I've learned recently was the color wheel thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where if you go Google color wheel, you'll see a bunch of images come up, but if you want to use contrasting colors. And so like if I'm looking at the color wheel on my other monitor right now, and like yellow is opposite of purple, pink is opposite of green, blue is opposite of orange, Like though you want to use those colors together because it pops off the page. And so I've been attempting to incorporate that a little bit more into my thumbnails so that I'm not, because I feel like there's some value in using the same colors all the time, but there's also a lot of value in switching things up on occasion to really capture attention.
Yeah. We got one here. Oh, sorry.
We're talking about this type of color wheel where, all right, I'm going to select orange. And so blue contrasts quite well with that, or purples or whatever. And this is a free tool. It's quite handy.
Color.adobe.com.
There we go.
So, will lazy editing and thumbnails affect new gaming channels, or should I put more effort on them? I had to pick this just because I feel like they answered their own question. But yes. Think of it this way. The thumbnail and the title are the packaging, right? That's the box the thing comes in your video. You can get really good at making an awesome package for your video. People click on that package, they open it up, and if there's a big turd inside, they're probably not going to hang out. What?
He talked about farts earlier on. I know somebody else put that in the comments, and now you're talking about polishing up turds. Dan, come on.
Sorry, I was trying to add some levity. But if your video isn't edited, they're not going to stick around. They're not continuing to watch that video, which means they're closing the box and they're putting it away. Now, YouTube has a recommendation system, and it studies that behavior, and it goes, what's in that box? You know what? I'm not even going to open it. In fact, I'm going to stop presenting it to people because I don't know what's in there and I don't want to know. So it's both. You have to do both. Your editing needs to be on point, and the packaging, I'm sorry. It's a good analogy, whether you like it or not, okay? The packaging needs to be on point, and then you have to deliver on that. People need to be impressed with what they see when they open that box.
Unless
it's
intentional. And what I mean by that, certainly in the Minecraft space, Dan, where we see these what look to be not thought out titles and thumbnails, which almost look lazy, but actually it's very hard and very intentional to get it to look like that very childlike, lazy way of pitching something, because that's for the target audience.
Yeah.
But as I say, that's not actually lazy editing or thumbnail design. It's very intentional.
It's deliberate.
It's designed to appeal to a certain type of viewer who is attracted to that type of content. Yeah.
So there's also the opposite we get a lot, where people are like, guys, I spend so much time editing my video. Why does nobody watch? Nobody knows you spent that time, because obviously you work on titles and thumbnails. The packaging just isn't there. You've been practicing the editing part, which is good. Now you got to get better at titles and thumbnails. So I'm glad we had that discussion, and now everyone walks away with a new analogy that they can use. They can share that with their friends when they're giving their own YouTube advice. Most innovative ways to use the community tab for the watercolor niche. I think this is a slam dunk. No one else wants to
dunk it then?
Okay. If you're an art channel, post your art on the community tab. I mean, you should be. So biggest mistake I see with the community tab are people asking their audience constantly, what video should I make next? They're putting out polls and stuff that are very particular to that creator. They're not about their audience, they're about the creator. Well, the community tab, just like videos, should be for your audience. You should do a lot, just like videos, you should do a lot there, give value to your audience. If you are a watercolor channel and you're painting, pictures of your art, your collection, like behind the scenes, all that stuff is relevant to your audience. I think they'd find that valuable. And then you can also take a picture of something you painted and say, hey, if you want to see how this came together, link to the video.
I found polls to be so beneficial. They get the most engagement for us out of anything. Yeah. Like, you can ask a question or post a resource and a link out or a link to a video or whatever, and those are fine. They'll get some engagement. But when you ask people questions, and it's just so easy for people to click that to answer a poll, and in the watercolor niche, my initial gut would be like, involve them in your content creation through the use of polls. what should I paint next? What would you like me, like, what should I do that I have not done before? Like, figure out a way to incorporate polls that then influences your content so that you're creating what you know people want to see or have requested to see. Because when you deliver on that, those people who left a comment and said, I want to see a watercolor of a golden retriever puppy, and you do that, those people are like, they listen to me. That's huge.
Oh, yeah.
That's so valuable. And for us, polls have been awesome. And they just get the most engagement.
Polls. I mean, and you can also ask people what kind of paint. Like you have other fellow artists who are watching that content, so you could be asking about different products they're using, like, but always cater it to them. Like always make it, involve them in your content. It's the community tab. But I've seen people use it, I guess, selfishly, and that's okay. Once in a while, it's okay to use it to celebrate some success or something. But I see people exclusively use it to give like non-relevant updates, and that's like it's such a cool tool. Like it's something that I believe in the community tab. I believe can genuinely grow your influence on the platform as a whole. And the more likes it gets, the more engagement it gets, the more that kind of snowballs. So we got this one. This is another one I picked because I found it interesting. Are you familiar with the commentary channel niche? How can I niche down my commentary? Because I feel like I cover a broad spectrum of topics. I'm worried my audience won't watch all my videos.
I don't know what a commentary channel is just by itself without context, which might be the challenge for this creator. Mm-hmm. So I guess my question to the creator is, what is your through line through the commentaries? Maybe what Daniel was alluding to at the again towards the beginning of the live stream. What should a viewer be coming out of the video with in terms of a new understanding of something, an impact of some way, an inspirational thought from the video? How is your commentary going to elicit that thought? I guess now might be a good time to show you this, actually. I'm not using this as much as I should do, but I've kind of got this. I'm trying to plan more as I'm making videos. And so I'm thinking up of all of these different points of the viewer. Like what is their fears, goals, or motivations for watching a certain video? Or what is the ideal comment you would want to get from that video? And then you can make your content towards that direction. I'm not going to take any credit for this. This is an idea from Ed at Film Booth, and he's talked about this in detail in one of his videos. I just can't remember which one. So trying to answer these questions about what do you want to get from the viewer before you make the video may help you in that respect.
I was going to say when I saw this, personally, I wouldn't consider commentary its own niche. Just as a general rule, I think we're doing commentary right now on these questions, but our questions that we're answering are specific to people trying to grow YouTube channels. And I think if you're interested in doing commentary, you should be doing commentary on a thing. You wouldn't hire a commentator for like a sports team who was going to go into the booth and just start talking about like what they're going to have for dinner later. And you know what I mean? Like there's a stadium full of people. They hired a commentator to commentate on what's going on the field, not whatever that person felt like. And I guess that's the trick right there. It's like you have to make your content for an audience. Yes, it's great that you like doing commentary. Now, what's something else you're passionate about other than creating that content? Like take another passion you have and make your content about that.
Yeah, like Phil DeFranco comments on the news or current events. Bob Menery, which this is not the best example. Bob Menery does profane and crude commenting on sports clips, but like it's got a very specific style, very specific type of content that they comment on. So I think you're spot on with that, Dan.
We get this one a lot, and I picked it for you, Daniel, because I want to know what your thoughts are on this. Should you make a separate channel for? Oh no, I've triggered something. I'm so sorry. I can take it away.
No, it's this is like this. I feel like this is just the ongoing discussion that everyone's having.
Yeah,
and everyone has a different opinion, right? Like Peter McKinnon posted that video a week or two ago about shorts and going all in on shorts, and he had interviews or clips from all these different creators voicing their opinions on shorts. Like MKBHD is all in on separate channel for shorts because he's like, I don't want it to tank my analytics. I don't want it to have that kind of undue impact because YouTube's still figuring it out, and we don't know. We're not privy to where they're figuring it out and where that's going. But my current insight or current opinion on it and stance is that I think it's fine to put it on your own channel right now, because I think YouTube is going to figure it out. I think YouTube is like right now, the experience on like desktop with shorts, not great, but I think they're working to improve it and incorporate it in. Like, I don't think they're going to encourage people to make shorts and then penalize their channel in some way because they have shorts on their channel with their long form content. And they've also indicated they're interested in podcasts, like YouTube podcasting or whatever it is. So like, then if you add 3-hour podcast to your channel, like, is that going to tank things or change the way that your channel is viewed and served and recommended? I don't think so. Like, I think they are creating all of this stuff and working to integrate everything in a way that is beneficial for creators and viewers. So, you know, it's difficult because like you see views go up, but then it's a 9-second short, right? You get 1,000 views on a 9-second short and you're like, hey, that's awesome. I got 1,000 more views, but it's a little bit different than getting 1,000 views on a 10-minute video. So I think it's just murky water to navigate at this point, but I am bullish that YouTube is going to figure it out, and that like including shorts on your regular channel isn't going to negatively impact you in the long run.
I would agree with that. It's kind of like the same debate. There's a lot of people who say, oh, should I private my live streams after they're done? And it does. There are certain parts of your analytics that pick up live streams as if they're videos when they're done, when they're VODs, and it screws things up. Like we struggle with it a lot. And when we want to look at certain analytics, it just throws live streams in there, and we're like, gosh, dang it! Like, I hate the way this looks. It's so hard to get the data we need. We have to work harder to get it. That's, in my opinion, the only negative thing a live stream being available after the fact is done. Other than that, I've personally, and working for vidIQ as well, we've not noticed any negative impact for our overall content, just because by doing live streams, that doesn't negatively impact anything. But that old live stream can definitely make your analytics look a bit wonky. Here we go. Yeah, this is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the retention is brutal.
I've given this feedback. What you're doing, yep, I've done this. Stop mixing live streams with VODs.
Every week.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I
did the same thing.
But it always makes me feel good after a live stream and I go look at the watch time for the month. I'm like, all right,
yes,
let's go. Let's go. Because that looks great. It's just some of the other things are like, oh, that's a little uncomfortable to see.
Yeah. I've always said with shorts, like if you're making shorts about that don't have anything to do with your main channel focus, yes, obviously a new channel, kind of like anything. But if your shorts are going to be very similar to the long form videos you're making, I think it's a benefit to put them on the same place. I've certainly benefited from that. But there's also no downside if you're that worried about it to just put it on a new channel.
And then to give you another opinion, if you have never made short form content before, I would start a new channel, and just so that you can understand how to make short form content. I think you make a great point there, Daniel, about what MKBHD said, that he doesn't like the concept, the idea of shorts analytics ruin the purity of the analytics he already has on his channel. But I also agree with you that YouTube will figure it out. That you should almost put a slogan against YouTube in terms of video platform. They will figure it out in the same way they're going to figure out how to monetize shorts, I believe, much more effectively than TikTok. But YouTube made a monumental decision to combine short form content and long form content together and not have that clear dividing line. And we're still all trying to wrestle with that decision that YouTube have made.
There's a rumor, there's a speculation that TikTok is going to experiment with 15-minute videos at some point, and that's going to be the opposite problem. People on TikTok are going to be like, well, wait, should I, these, platforms are going to try stuff, and you have to kind of make your decisions and do what you're comfortable doing.
Yeah, they'll have to deal with a lot less views on those 15-minute videos.
Well, they'll figure it out. Yeah. Can I throw it to you for a sec, Rob? I'll take care of something real quick.
Sure. All right. Let's
There's a question
take
for you.
the next question from Thatcher. You discussed not getting obsessive or in panic mode. How do you personally change that mentality?
I don't feel as though I'm qualified to answer this because it's a work in progress. Like, I'm not perfect. Right. Like, I'm on here talking about consistency today. And if you go look at our channel, like, you'll see there have been blips in our consistency in the last couple months as we've been kind of pivoting, and a lot of change has been happening in our company. But in terms of not being obsessive I'm still obsessive for sure. I just hit the panic button less. So that little twitch in my finger that used to be there is a little more stable these days. And I'd say that the way that I change that mentality is it's kind of like I'm teaching my 4-year-old right now about controlling emotions. He's very emotional. I love him to death, but like when he gets angry, 0 to 100 so fast, and you know exactly how he feels. Or if he gets really sad, you know exactly how he feels. And I think hitting the panic button thing kind of fits with what I'm teaching him, which is you've got to recognize the triggers for yourself. Like if you've got some triggers, like you start feeling tense or anxious or panicky about these analytics not being what you want, you have to be able to feel that in the moment, observe it, and step out of it, see it for what it is, and then say, okay, I might be overreacting here, and I probably should let this ride for a little bit longer and think a little bit more rationally about it, maybe get some external perspectives beyond your own as to, hey, should I swap this out, or should I make this change, or should I let it ride for a little bit, and then after a little bit more data and some more experience, is it time to go ahead and make that change? But that, for me, that's kind of been the shift in that mentality, is like taking my own medicine with what I'm trying to teach my son, like identifying the triggers, stepping back, stepping out of the situation and viewing it unemotionally, and then figuring out what's the actual right course of action.
I would approach this from 2 angles. You have to take into account the creator/viewer intent. For example, if you're making content that is intentionally search-based and you want it to get views over a long period of time, then you may have to accept that to begin with, the video might not perform very well. Example of this, we do a how to start a gaming channel every single year, and we tend to know that this isn't going to perform very well to begin with because it's not an exciting topic, but we know that people are going to be searching for this topic today, tomorrow, next week, next month. And so we're going to continue to get that steady run of views. And that's exactly what's happening 2 months into its journey. So we wouldn't press the panic button there. However, if it is a time-sensitive piece of content and you know that in 48 hours, this topic is dead, for example, a Super Bowl, the Oscars, the release of a movie, then you may need to think about changing things very quickly. As well as this, experience really does help. You'll get to a point where you've published so many videos, you have an instinct or an understanding of a direction that the video is going to go in. And sometimes you'll have videos that perform way better than you expect. Sometimes you'll have videos that are absolute stinkers, which you put a lot of time and effort into. And you have to have that element of emotional detachment where you can pull yourself out of a piece of content that you've made and turn up for the next one. Start working on the next one. Dan, what are your thoughts on this, if you have any?
I missed the first part of what you said, so I don't want to repeat anything, but I'll go back to the example I gave earlier. I had some really good success changing out some thumbnails in panic mode. It just something didn't feel right. And I can kind of tell you in retrospect why that was, right? So my videos had very consistent views, and then I had some ones break out, and it taught me a lot. I'm like, oh, this style of thumbnail, this style of title, this topic, this is working. So I want to do more of this. And so I got because of that breakout success, I got some extra knowledge. And then I got some, thoughts about, okay, I'm going to make a video just like that. And I think it'll do the same thing in the first 24 or so hours, right? And it didn't, and that's when that first time I changed the thumbnail, it worked. I'm like, fantastic. I'm dead on. Like, now I know how these types of videos should perform in the first 24 hours. And I just got to make sure I package it properly. And then when any video didn't perform right, that starts to, like, you remember, like, oh, I changed the thumbnail that one time and it worked out. I'll do that again. Obviously I did something wrong. And turns out, had I just chilled, had I just waited, or tempered my expectations based on the type of video I made, maybe it wasn't the same type of video. That just came with practice, I guess, is the long way of saying that. You kind of get a sense of the different types of content you make and how you feel like they should perform based on history, and you got to have history to learn from it, so it kind of comes back to experience. That's how I would keep from getting obsessed. Sometimes you just have to take a step back. And at the time when I was panicking, I was not taking a step back. I had no chill.
No chill.
All right. Sorry. I didn't know if we were.
Yeah, sorry. I'm handing control back to you, Dan.
Okay. So if I was to make a new channel thinking storytelling, should I choose to speak in my native language or in English? Very interesting question. Any initial thoughts?
Based on the name, I would say that your native language is probably not a very widely spoken language, maybe. Although I could be totally wrong. I could be totally ignorant of that, but I think English is probably the way to go, just because English is spoken by so many people around the world at this point that I think it probably opens you up to a wider audience than your native language.
Counter argument to that would be that.
Don't worry, he just does this to everybody.
Yeah, I do this all the time. The audience may be underserved in your native language because YouTube doesn't have the same reach in terms of creators. For example, in India, as that's exploded in the last 2 or 3 years, native speakers, especially in the YouTube education space, like, we're happy if we get 20,000 views, but a lot of these Indian YouTube creators get 200,000 views easily because they're serving their native audience. And sometimes when you're speaking in a second language, sometimes you can almost only perform at like 60-70% of your best, just because you're having to translate everything. But at the same time, for some creators, that really works because people really like this fresh accent, so to speak, or on an English topic. So it can be swings and roundabouts. I tend to recommend to creators to go after their native language first, because even though the whole pool may be a lot smaller, you might be one of just a handful of people in that space, and you can dominate it. But that's where probably quite a bit of research is required.
It's in the comments, he said it's Lithuanian is his language.
Yeah.
And 3 million, I just looked it up, 3 million people worldwide speak Lithuanian.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a decent audience. Like, if you can capture a nice segment of that audience, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, let's just imagine for your particular topic, there are 100,000 Lithuanian speaking people who are interested in it. If you could capture 50%, 60% of our market, because there are only 10 creators covering that topic, that could be a really good starting point. But again, you got the other argument of how much money am I going to make? How much is my CPM going to be in Lithuania? And that can turn into a business decision as well.
I was going to say, if you want like a definitive answer about this, it would take more work. But what you can do, we've audited a channel recently, and we gave them this advice because they were making fitness videos, in, I think it was maybe Spanish and English, but on the same channel. And it wasn't, one was obviously doing better than the other in terms of language.
Portuguese, I think.
So we told them, like, you should be putting those on a separate channel if you're going to sit down anyway and make the same content twice, because it's literally what they were doing. They would do the video in English and they'd do the video in Portuguese, and they'd put both videos out at the same time on the same channel. And it was not working. So that would be a separate channel. What you could do is plan your first 10, 20 videos where you're going to make them twice, once in English, once in your native tongue, and then put them on 2 separate channels. That's a lot more work. That's literally 2 channels, but you will have an answer. Eventually you pare it down to 1, unless you just like that workflow and it works for you. But one's going to perform better than the other, and then you can make that your decision. But that's a very long way to figure out, you know, something that you could just kind of like, you could just give something your full focus, and it may do great either way if you're willing to just jump in after deciding.
Another approach to that could be, rather than shooting it in both languages, you could dub it. I mean, I know Mr. Beast is a terrible example because it's not relatable in the slightest, but like he's dubbing in all these different languages now, and those channels are blowing up in like Spanish, Russian, I forget what else. So you could shoot it in Lithuanian or in English, and then take the same footage and then just dub a different voiceover on the same footage and upload it to 2 separate channels, which it's not double the work, but it is more. And it just could be another opportunity to reach both audiences rather than just one.
Yeah, that is what we're doing.
Showing off the work of Unilingo, who voiceover dub all of our content, including the text within the content, which is incredible.
Amazing.
But obviously for this creator, they wouldn't have to do that because they are the voiceover artists in themselves if they just do the redubs.
Yeah. So plenty of options there for you.
Yeah, did we give a good answer there, or just
I think so. I think we gave
17 different choices.
Yeah, very well-rounded answer. I think I'm gonna say we did good work there. Should I have a specific time that I upload my videos, like always on Mondays at 3 p.m., or should just one video a week, sometimes on Mondays, sometimes on Wednesdays? So should they're going to do one video a week, should it be the same exact time, or can they be kind of loose with it?
I would like Daniel to tackle this one, because don't take this the wrong way, Daniel, but you're kind of in a system in that you're representing Uscreen, so you have sort of like obligations to do one video a week. Does that then determine when you publish, or is it still a little bit, I'm going to get it published when it's done?
I try to stick to deadlines for myself. I think there's a lot of value in showing up consistently at the same time, in the same place, in the same way. When you kind of change around, like sometimes it'll be Mondays, sometimes it'll be Wednesdays, like people don't know what to expect from you. They don't know if you're going to show up on Monday. They don't know if you're going to show up on Wednesday. They don't know if you're going to show up at all. Whereas if you consistently show up Monday at 1 p.m. for 52 weeks, they know where to find you, when to find you, and how to find you. So I am all for consistency in that regard and showing up the same time and place. And I think when you have a small channel, it's a little bit more difficult to discern through the analytics, like when that should be, or if you should tweak that. But as your channel grows, you can certainly dig into the analytics and figure out, okay, when are my views, what days of the week are my views peaking? Do I get the most views on Monday, or are they coming on Thursday? Or are they coming on Tuesday? Okay, great. Now, every Monday, let me go look at my real-time analytics for the last 24 hours and see, what does the wave of traffic on my channel look like? Is it, like for us, Mondays and Thursdays are pretty peaky in terms of views. And then if I go on Mondays and Thursdays and look at those real-time analytics, I will see a wave that starts about 7 a.m., which I'm in Central Time. So 7 a.m. Central Time, you'll see it creep up a little, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., a little more. And then between 9 and 11 a.m., it spikes quite a bit. And then it dips for the rest of the day for the most part. And so I know that if I want to capitalize on that, then I want to publish Monday or Thursday before about 8:30 a.m. probably, because I want to be there before that wave comes in. Like, it's kind of like surfing. You want to anticipate the wave so you can catch it just right, rather than trying to catch it at the top or on the way down or anything like that. So that's the way that I approach it. Let me show up consistently on the same dates and times, but let me also pay attention to the data and revisit it every few weeks or months and see, what do those peaks look like? Have they changed since the last time I looked, or is it still the same and that's still going to work for us?
And this is just one tool that YouTube has as well, to keep you on top of that. So it's telling us, where it's getting bright purple here, very many of your viewers are on YouTube, and it's 9 a.m. local time. So that, you like you said, Daniel, you want to be here before that time, just before. So your video is fresh. People who are getting up in the morning, who typically watch your videos around 9 a.m., it's there for them. It's ready to go. What I was going to add to that is that it really doesn't matter in terms of your new viewers. Like, it doesn't make a difference to them. This is all about, as you're building your returning viewers, your community, your core audience. They're the ones helping YouTube get that early data. So YouTube is like, oh, there's some really good signals here from the returning viewers. So it's nice to hit them like right at that perfect time. With regards to the long-term performance for new viewers, obviously doesn't matter when you posted the video. It's just getting out there, but really, really important for your returning viewers.
I like to call this the resting heartbeat or cadence of your channel, because, you know, through 24 hours, it has those ups and downs. So I'm just using our Spanish channel as an example here. And it looks to me like we start to reach a peak between 7 and 8 per every day. So I might ask our team to just adjust, because obviously they publish a video there at noon. I might ask them to just push that back a few hours, publish it a little bit earlier on in the day. Because there's some clear evidence there of when most of our audience for the Spanish channel is watching our content. Another way to think of this as well is, when is your audience typically online? For example, a secondary school student is watching YouTube very differently to a full-time mom. For example, did you notice I said mom there instead of mum? I was trying to
Good
the
job.
Americanism.
Good job,
right.
Rob.
Yeah, thanks. So like a kid may get back from school and then consume YouTube between 4 and 7 every night, whereas a mom might not be able to watch YouTube until 9 o'clock when they've when their day is done, so to speak, or they may only be able to watch YouTube at the weekend. So try and think about when your target audience is most likely to be on YouTube and align your content to those assumptions if you don't have enough data yet on your channel.
So this question here, we get a question like this all the time. So let's give some insights here too. Is 6.5% CTR good?
Okay, again, let's get Daniel's opinion on this first before we pile in, Dan.
Well, now I'm nervous that I'm going to be wrong and you guys are going to pile on to me.
No wrong answers.
I guess that's
okay. There can be wrong
subjectively true. 6.5% CTR. I think that's solid. I think it also depends on at what point in the life of the video that CTR is coming from. If that CTR is like a video that's a year old, fantastic. If that video is 1 hour old, decent. You'd probably want it to be higher, because what happens is the more impressions you get, the lower your CTR goes, right? So if you have a massive audience, then and your CTR at the beginning should start higher. I don't know why I said massive audience, but when your video first goes out, it has the least amount of impressions. So you want that CTR to be high. You want as many people that are seeing it as possible to click on it, which would mean a higher CTR. And then the older the video gets, the more impressions it gets, the less clicks it'll get. So it'll come down, but I think that is solid. I also am coming from a much smaller channel than you guys are.
Dan, for the channel that you are secretly working on or have been for ages, would you say a 10% click-through rate after the first 3 hours is good?
3 hours? That's pretty miserable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For us at vidIQ, 10% after 3 hours would be absolutely fantastic, because the distribution of the content changes radically depending on the audience. So it is almost an impossible question to answer. And also, depending on how your videos perform over the long term, can really impact your click-through rate. I'm going to show you this really boring graph again, which I've been working on now for about 6 months almost. Let me try and focus in on some click-through rates around December. After the first hour, were like 7%, 9%, 11%, 8%, etc., etc. And I thought that was pretty good. But if you look what happens up here in January, February time, the click-through rate is dropped to 6%, 8%, 7%, etc. But the impressions have gone through the roof. They've like almost doubled. So as Daniel, you were saying, typically the more impressions you get, the lower the click-through rate is, but that's a good thing because it's being shared across a much wider audience. So what I think here is that we've sent positive signals to YouTube through our data. Now YouTube wants to share this content with a wider audience, so it gives us more impressions. But because that new audience is less invested in our content, they're less likely to click. So the click-through rate is lower, but we get more views overall because the impressions are higher. That is a really long, technical, boring way of explaining it, which goes back to the question of it's very difficult to say whether or not 6.5% is good or not from all of these different influences.
The biggest thing about this question is that it's going to depend on what YouTube is telling you. And the best place to get that information, which is not easy to show right now because we're doing a live stream, is on your dashboard when you upload a new video, your latest video performance. Right now it says live stream. It'll tell you right in here what the click-through rate is, and there'll be a little green check next to it if it's on par, or a little green arrow going up if it's like better than usual, and a little gray arrow pointing, here we go, yeah, pointing down if it's not great. So on the Spanish channel right now, 7.1% click-through rate, which is higher than usual, and it's helping the video right now. It's 3 out of 10.
But even in this 24-hour period, just look at how the click-through rate has changed. And I think what's happened here is that there was probably an increase in click-through rate, and YouTube thought, this video is performing well. Let's send more impressions. Hey, perfect example. Let's send more impressions to this video, but click-through rate is going to suffer because of that.
Yep.
But views have started to just bend upwards as well.
Yeah.
Wow, this is getting technical.
So on that channel you alluded to earlier, Rob, I need for my video to do excellent. I need in the first, I would say, few hours of a video, video's lifespan, 17 to 19% click-through rate on that video. That's how I know I have like a hit. This video is going to be in the upper echelon. This video is going to be a 1 to 2 out of 10. But for us, it's way different. And that's why it's so important to compare you to yourself. You can't be comparing yourself to other creators in your niche. You can't be comparing yourself to people like us. You see our click-through rate at 4%, and you're like, okay, I know I'm better than vidIQ. It doesn't work like that. You have to compare yourself to yourself. And that's all of YouTube's tools. That's what it's there for. That's what all the analytics are doing. They're taking your performance of your old videos and comparing them to your new videos. And that's going to give you the most accurate readout, not looking at our metrics and then saying, okay, I'm just going to base everything off that channel that I know.
And so that was a really long-winded way of asking Daniel, what's your click-through rate, eh?
Apparently lower than it should be. But I don't think I'll ever feel that it's high enough.
No one does.
Right.
No one does. I want to thank everybody here for hanging out with us today. Once again, Uscreen, the link is down below to check out their YouTube channel, uscreen.tv, to learn more about their business as well and how they're helping creators all over the world. Any final thoughts there, Daniel?
No, thank you guys so much for having me on. It's been a fun conversation, and yeah, our channel is all about helping people make money with video, however we can. That's like the #1 goal. It's not to sell you on Uscreen or anything like that. It's just let's help creators make more money online. So if you want, first link in the description of this video, check it out, subscribe. We'd love to have you.
I've made my decision. Use necessary cookies only.
Way to close that loop, Rob.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We will be back. When are we back? What's the next thing, Rob?
So the video that I hinted at is going to come out tomorrow or Friday. And then we have another video that's coming out on Monday, live streams Tuesday, Wednesday. That's usually the general pitch of a channel. Four pieces of content a week.
That's
whenever we decide to publish them.
That's what a consistent channel looks like.
Yeah, absolutely.
If everyone's taking notes. All right. Thank you, everybody. We will see you next time. Have a good one.